536, which has the same learning objective as 535. Today we're going to continue using the associative property to help us multiply fractions. So you need to have a piece of paper and a pencil out, or a whiteboard and a whiteboard marker. And the first thing that I want you guys to do is you are going to be writing 2 different number sentences to represent 6 copies of 3/8. Okay, so again, you're going to write 2 different number sentences to represent 6 copies of 3/8. Pause the video while you write your 2 number sentences for 6 copies of 3/8. Alrighty, so I'm going to show you the 2 number sentences that I wrote, and maybe yours are similar to mine, maybe they're different. That's okay. So for 6 copies of 3/8, I wrote an addition sentence and a multiplication sentence. Because we had 6 copies of 3/8, I added together 3/8 6 times. I also did a multiplication sentence, 6 times 3/8. The multiplication symbol, you could think of it as the word copies, 6 copies of 3/8, or 6 groups of 3/8. Again, yours might be different, and that's okay. But I want us to kind of focus on these number sentences, and I have a question for you that I want you to answer in the comments below this video. Which of these strategies do you find to be the most efficient? We have repeated addition to solve 6 copies of 3/8. We also have multiplication to show 6 copies of 3/8. Which one of these, in your opinion, is the most efficient? I want you to put your answer in the comments below. And there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer here, but I want to see what you guys think. So you guys can pause the video and write what you think down below. Alrighty. So like I said at the beginning of the video, we're focusing on how we can use the associative property to help us multiply fractions. Okay, so right now we're going to be focusing on 6 times 3/8. So real quick, I'm going to erase my board so I have 6 times 3/8 written nice and big for us. So 6 times 3/8. And I'd like for you to write this down on your paper as well. 6 times 3/8. All right, so here's our multiplication problem. I would like for you to write 6 times 3/8 in unit form. I want you to take a moment. How could we write 6 times 3/8 in unit form? Pause the video and write it on your whiteboard. Let's see, I'm going to write it on my whiteboard as well. So we have 6 times 3/8. To write this in unit form, we are going to think about what the units are, and our fractional unit is eighths, so that's the unit that we're going to write. So we can write this in unit form by writing 6 times 3/8. So we just put the parentheses here to make sure that we know that this is grouped together. All right, so 6 times 3/8 written in unit form, 6 times 3/8. Now, I want you to recall what the associative property allows us to do. What is the associative property? What is the associative property? Well, the associative property states that, it doesn't matter how the numbers are grouped. We're still going to come to the same answer. So right now we see that 3/8 is grouped. So using the associative property, we can change this grouping, and we're still going to arrive to the same answer. It's still going to have the same value. And it's going to help us to solve. So we can change the parentheses from being around 3/8 to be around 6 times 3. All right, we're not changing the order, we're just changing the grouping. So 6 times 3, and then our unit is 8ths. Now, when you look at the way this problem is written, it's a lot easier to solve, isn't it? We have 6 times 3, and then our unit is 8ths. What is 6 times 3? You're right, it's 18. Yes, 18. So 6 times 3 is 18. And then we know that our unit is 8ths. 18 eighths. Alrighty. Using the associative property, we didn't change the problem at all. We really didn't. We wrote it in unit form, and then we used that unit form, and we incorporated the associative property to change the grouping to make it a little bit easier to multiply. And we got 18 eighths. Now, how could you write this number sentence right here? How can we write that using numbers? How can you write that using numbers? Real quick, I'm going to erase my board so I have some more space, but I want you to think to yourself. So we had 6 times 3. You know what? I could leave. I'll erase just the top half. There we go. That's fine. So how can we write this using just numbers? I want you to try to write that on your own, and then we'll go over it together. So you might want to pause the video. So if we're going to rewrite this in unit form, we know that the 6 times 3 is grouped together. And then our units are going to stay the same. So this is actually really important because we're doing 6 copies of 3/8. We know that the eighths is not changing. The unit is staying the same, but the amount of eighths that we have is what's changing. So we know that when we multiply 6 times 3 to get 18, let me back up a little bit. 6 times 3, that's going to stay together, and then our eighths is going to stay the same because, again, the number of eighths was changing, but the denominator was not changing. So rewriting this using numbers would look like this: 6 times 3 eighths, and our answer again is 18 eighths. Alrighty. I would like for you guys to change this into a mixed fraction. It doesn't really matter how you leave it. What does matter, though, is that you're following instructions. If a problem asks you to leave it as a mixed fraction or improper fraction, you just got to follow those instructions. Alrighty, you guys. So we saw that we can use the associative property to change the groupings to help us to solve multiplication problems involving fractions. So I have one practice problem for you. The problem I would like for you to solve is 12 times 3/4. Now I want you to remember that you can rewrite this in unit form if that helps you, or you can just take this and rewrite it the way we rewrote 6 times 3/8. It's up to you. Alrighty, friends. So this is all I have for you for lesson 536. Feel free to rewatch the video to get some extra help. And stay tuned for more tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.